without further ado, we're going to jump right into it, everyone.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This is Tanya Jones, CEO and founder of Interactive Advocacy. And again, this is our second day, fourth session. Oh my goodness, our fourth session. And we are talking to the amazing, outstanding, phenomenal. When you talk about never let trauma define you, this is the person that I think about. I mean, when you talk about resilience, oh my gosh. So one thing's for certain about Anne Marie, she has grit. So you want to talk about a gutsy person? You're talking to her. She has, and I'm going to share this with you. I'm just going to read this because I think that this says so much.
Okay.
30 years after a stalking rapist left her with PTSD, she registered for the race Ironman, a triathlon that gives athletes 17 hours to swim 2.4 miles, cycle 112 miles, and run 26 miles. To transformation, her mindset from that of a victim to a warrior. And she set goals to race without one negative thought. Oh my goodness, Anne Marie, thank you so much and welcome, welcome, welcome. I just want you to kind of reintroduce yourself and just share a little bit of your story, and then we're going to jump right into some questions.
Okay, that sounds good. So my story began, at least the trauma side of the story, began when I had just turned 19. I was a very innocent, naive virgin, had no concept of, I was going to save myself until I got married, and that was until I met a stalker. I did not know this person. He moved into a neighborhood of a good friend of mine. And so the day that I met him at a party, the night I met him at a party was when his stalking began with me. And it began that night by him raping me. And at that time, there was no resources locally, regionally, nationally, globally, that there was no such thing as a 800 rape hotline. There was no such thing as a domestic violence shelter. Not that it was domestic violence, but just to kind of give everyone a reference on resources available. And though my instinct told me to report it, shame and guilt and false guilt, really got in the way of that. And I did tell one person who said, well, just stay away from him. And I just thought that was a really great piece of advice. But there's a lot of problems by not reporting it. One is he knew he could get away with it. Two, by me not telling my good friends, my family what had happened, nobody knew to watch my back. And three is I didn't really fight for justice. I didn't speak my voice. There's a number of issues that we can go into more detail if you like, but by kind of laying all of those things on the table for him to see and recognize really enabled him some authority. I don't know what the right word is for him to start the stalking. And so over a 4-year time period, he had stalked me, raped me a second time by using the date rape drug that goes into a drink. And he tried killing me twice by strangling me the first night that I had met him, and at a future date by shooting at me. And because I didn't speak up and I didn't do anything, I didn't go to counseling, I got PTSD. We can talk a little bit more about PTSD as well, because what I like to do is encourage people, if they have a traumatic experience in their life, it doesn't have to be on the scale of mine, any kind of a traumatic experience, within 2 weeks of that time, if they start feeling, triggers, or if they're having nightmares, or they're reliving the ordeal, and that's consistently within a 2-week period, PTSD is taking hold. And the sooner someone goes to get counseling, the better off they're going to be in regards to processing that event more successfully in finding peace with that event. But it took me 15 years to get counseling, and many reasons why is one is I kept thinking, well, what is somebody else going to say to me that I haven't already said to myself? And another is I didn't want to re-victimize myself by openly sharing these details. and a lot of shame. And I just kept thinking I can pull myself up by the bootstraps, as they say, and continue on. And I realized, after 15 years of dealing with it, I couldn't. I needed to find some help. And that alone was a process because it took me 3 different counselors to find the right one. And I can share more details on that later, and if someone wants to talk about that. And so when I finally went to counseling, I realized, wow, I'm not alone. I went to group counseling as well, and I heard other people's stories, and I started realizing other people really understood my pain and my frustrations, and I learned how to process it. I was given some great tools, but I still struggled with the negative mindset, that kind of a victim's mindset, like, oh, everything happens to me, and why do these, I was blaming other people, circumstances on my problems, and not really taking responsibility, and not it's really having a vision in life. And not until another 15 years later, when I was 49, did I say, you know what, I want to do this Ironman race. And I had thought about doing Ironman for 10 years. And I kept thinking, oh, I'll fail at it. People are going to laugh at me. People could think this is ridiculous. And I didn't know how to even go about doing it. But instinctively, I just knew I had to do it. I knew that there was a bigger reasoning that I just couldn't understand. And I finally listened to the power of my inner voice. And even though I didn't have really the resources, the time, or the know-how, I just made it happen. And so it took a year of disciplining the mind and the body to, turn my raggedy 49-year-old body into an Ironman. And then, to really discipline the mind so I could get through that race without one negative thought.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. Thank you so much for your transparency and for sharing that. And I want to let everyone know, again, we have Miss Anne Marie Dulevon on the phone with us. So she's sharing her trauma story. So please, I just want to put a quick trigger warning out there. If any of you have experienced trauma or you're feeling it, we want you to know that we are talking about that today, but we're also talking about inner peace and navigating or finding our way to that inner peace after trauma. So if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to make sure that you drop them in the comments section, and we'll make sure that we get those questions to Anne Marie so she can answer them for you. When we think about trauma, so many of us are haunted by trauma or the effects of traumatic events that have happened in our lives, and we really have to learn to readjust our mindset so we can work towards healing. So how can you use or how can you build a positive life after trauma? And I know you talked a little bit about what you did, and I want to I want you to take us on that journey on how you get there. But how can you build a positive life after trauma?
There's a number of things that people can do. The number one thing that people have to do, and it's not necessarily something that they have to do, but they have to want it. If they don't want a better life, if they don't think that they can have a better life, if they don't believe they can have a better life, they'll never will have it. And it took me a long time to really understand that, but it got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that really kind of started with the counseling. I remember when I finally found a counselor that I liked, that I felt could resonate with me, that I felt that I could trust and be comfortable and vulnerable with. I don't really remember the first couple of sessions. I don't remember how it all went down, but the first thing that she said is everything happens in its due time, like a leaf falling from a tree. And now it's my time, to be. And I really took heart to that. I mean, I had a moment, just a simple, short, not even 30-second moment where I felt at peace. And I just gravitated towards, I knew what that felt like. And I wanted to find out how could I have that, maybe not 100% of the time, but how could that feeling dominate my life as opposed to the feelings that I really held on to from the trauma.
Mm.
And I trusted that this counselor was going to help me get to that point where peace really dominated my life, as opposed to the negative feelings and all of the revenge and the anger and frustration and shame and guilt and all of that that I had lived with for at least 15 years. So once I came to the conclusion of what I wanted, I knew the goal, I knew that feeling, even though it was short lived. I just wanted to have that in my life, and I wanted to have a more peaceful life. So people have to say to themselves, doesn't matter what it's going to take, I'm going to have that sense of peace and that sense of success and that sense of worry or whatever it is, something that's positive as opposed to something that's negative.
Right, right. And,
Yeah.
I think also when we talk about the desire or the want to make these changes, there also has to be a little bit of belief that you deserve it.
Oh,
Because,
yes.
sometimes we don't even believe that we deserve a better life after trauma.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
again, you talked about the re-victimization and the blame and all of those different insecurities that we have after we experience trauma, that
Yeah.
sometimes, because we're so caught in, well, did I deserve this thing to happen to me? Then
Yeah.
there's this, well, maybe I don't deserve a better life. So can we talk about that too? Just making sure to remind folks that they deserve of that better life, so that they can kind of help navigate them on that. Do you want it?
You do. Yes, let's talk about that. That's very, very important, because the one of the ultimate things that I sought out um, is forgiveness. And when you really look at the details of what this person has done to me, even to this day, I don't necessarily know if he deserves forgiveness. This is such a subjective matter, but what I realize is that I deserve peace.
Mhm.
Everyone deserves peace, and and since my first Ironman, so much has changed, and one of them is that now I primarily work with the military, and I provide training on preventing destructive behavior, drug and alcohol abuse, suicide, domestic violence, and sexual assault. I provide that type of preventative training. And as I've traveled all around the world, I've met many people. And what I also find interesting is people that have witnessed trauma. They might not have had it happen to them, but they've witnessed it, and they in turn feel guilt or shame, and many of them have expressed that they don't feel like they deserve peace. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, I mean, I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be the person who's experienced trauma. Yes, the person who experienced trauma yes, they deserve peace, but even the secondary person that experiences trauma by being a bystander or witnessing or hearing it, or having some sort of pulse with it, that person deserves peace. Everyone deserves peace.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
when you think about families collectively that
Hmm.
unfortunately, maybe like you said, a domestic violence situation, or even if it's a sexual assault, where you have family members, especially like children, they witness, again, that they're that bystander and they witness the trauma, it then becomes traumatic for them as well. And when we talk about healing individuals, we have to also talk about healing whole families as a result of those traumatic experiences, because you're right, they do deserve inner peace as well. And a lot of times family members can feel very guilty. Absolutely, it's definitely collective in terms of finding inner peace.
There's I was Will Smith, the actor and the artist. I was watching him. He had a YouTube channel. I don't remember what the title it was, but he was kind of showcasing him putting himself in better health, better physical shape. And he started that last year, or the beginning of this year, I suppose, 2021. And as I was watching it, the very end, the last episode that I saw, he talks about when he was a young boy, he witnessed his father hitting his mother. And to this day, how that moment really traumatized him and really, yeah, affected him in so many different ways in regards to his guilt that he didn't stand up, didn't fight, didn't, whatever, and how it's triggering him to this day. And I'm like, it happens to everybody, you, you think, I think what I've learned is that so many times you look at somebody, you think, oh, they've got it all together. They've got the money, or they got the looks, or they got the body, they've got the car, they got the woman, they got the man, or whatever it is that they have that's better than whatever I have.
Mhm.
But when I'm able to really sit down and get to know people, there's so many little moments that happen in their life that is smoke and mirrors that really defines, let that define them on who they are and how they're acting and how they're conducting life. But everybody on some level has some sort of trauma in their lives, and most people can bounce back from it. They have the resiliency, they understand the tools, they have the, you know, emotional maturity. But there's a number of people like myself that still have those triggering moments, and the ultimate goal is really for them to realize that that does not have to define them.
Mhm.
That people do have a choice. That for a long time, I didn't think I really had choice because I didn't think I didn't have any control over my life. But in reality, yeah, there's a lot that we can't control, but there are many things that we can control. And the number one thing is in our mindset.
Mhm.
Um, Being an athlete, I always used to think the strongest muscle in the body might be in a bicep or quads or whatever it might be. And I realized, no, the strongest muscle in our body is our mind. And yet we rarely exercise it. We rarely do things to strengthen it and to find peace with it. Yeah.
And that is so true. I'm a person that has dealt with some medical concerns. And one of the things that I've noticed is that it's mind over matter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've willed myself to good health because I'm like, you're right. The brain is such a strong muscle, it's so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And I think that, if you have a good mindset, a great mindset, even, and that you're positive in terms of on how you think things through and how you want to receive that energy, that positive energy, that it can work towards healing you. So
Mm-hmm.
whether that's how you're doing mentally, physically, emotionally, so I think that you're right there. I think that mindset, and that's kind of how you begun your transformation with changing your mindset and
Mm-hmm.
and allowing your mindset to change so that you can work towards building your body stronger to now go into Ironman. So what are some of the things that you did to kind of help you reshape your mindset set to get you there?
Oh, there's many things that I did. One of them was that I visualized it. I started visualizing a better life, and in the Ironman, there are micro and macro goals. Of course, the ultimate is to cross the finish line, right? But how do you get to that point? I realized on my very first training day for running, I don't even think I won an eighth of a mile, and I stopped. I'm like, oh, I don't want to run. I can't run. I came up with all these great excuses as to walk. And I realized then, how am I going to finish, you know, 140 some miles, which ends with a run? If I don't even want to run an eighth of a mile, I had to come up with different ways to visualize myself getting, 1 mile done, 2 miles done, 10 miles done, 26 miles done. And so that was one, is I found some really great support. And when it came to the run, I mean, one of the best support systems I had was my dog. I did not want to run, but that dog wanted to run. And so we'd play this cat and mouse game when she'd grab the leash and make me chase after her to catch her. And then when I finally caught her, then she'd just drag me along for about a half a mile. But it's little things like that. If you can't do it on your own, how can you find support? And so she was my training partner for until we got to about 9 miles, and she just was like, "No, I'm not going to go.
You're on your
No,
own.
you're on your own. I got you here. And that's it." And one of the other great things I did is I started looking at other people who had succeeded and started trying to find ways to incorporate some of their skills or their tools, their resources. And there was an amazing woman, a Catholic nun, Sister Madonna, and she has done over 30 Ironmans. And when I met up with her, yeah, she was in her 80s, and
Oh,
she had, done over 30 of them. And I read up about her, researched her, like, how do you, I'm having a hard time at 49, and here she's 83, I think, and she's doing them. And the story goes that when she was roughly 49, 50, a priest told her that when you run, you have the same kind of a feeling as when you're pray, this meditative state. And so that's what got her to start running. And I'm still searching for that meditative state. I have yet to have experienced it really when it comes to run. But my father wasn't feeling well at the time, he was having health issues. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to devote 1 mile to him. And I'm just going to think about him and I'm going to pray for him. And so I began that mile with saying the Lord's Prayer. And then I just thought about him and I was just sending him positive energy. And I ended up having this really great run, even though it was just a 1 mile. And so then I thought, okay, great. And then I'm going to do another mile and I'm going to do it for somebody else and do another one for another person. And the theory was I could not stop running until I said the entire Lord's Prayer when continuously when I was in the moment. And the first time I did it, it went something like this: Our Father who art in, and then all of a sudden I just got distracted. Oh, look at that butterfly, or some car was honking, and there was this woman that ran past me, and she clearly needed a new sports bra, and I started, was so distracted that I wasn't able to stay in the moment. And ultimately, the goal was, to get through the entire race without a negative thought. In order to do that, I had to be in the moment. So this concept of, devoting a mile to a different person, saying that prayer, at the beginning and or at the end, not being able to stop until I was completely in the moment with that prayer, though it was different than what Sister Madonna had done. It was kind of like the same process for me of trying to be in some sort of a meditative state, trying to be aware of every moment of what was going on in my mind. How was I being distracted? How was I enjoying the moment? And that ended up being one of the most powerful tools
wow.
that really kind of got me to that finish line.
Wow, wow. Looks
Yeah.
like we have some comments coming in. Thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure that I get a chance to read them. So Liza was saying, many of us are afraid to get justice and share our stories. Also, thank you for sharing your story. And then there was a question: is running a meditative experience for you?
Well, I'm looking for it to be a meditative experience. No, it's not. I mean, a lot of people have it, but it's really work for me. It is. I have a very meditative experience when I'm swimming, and I can get in that meditative experience when I'm cycling, but I have yet to have gotten it when I'm running. So this is why I use, the concept of, dedicating a mile to another person, of saying a prayer. I don't have it in front of me, but I take a bandana with me whenever I run, and I write 1 through 26, each of the miles, and then I write the person's name or the group of people name that I'm devoting that mile to.
Wow.
I call it my zoo crew, and they go with me wherever I go. And when I'm actually racing, they follow me, so they know which mile I'm being dedicated to them,
Wow.
and they in turn are thinking of me. So I'm trying to make it meditative, but I don't have the same kind of feeling as I do like when I'm swimming. I can really be at one when I'm in the water. I haven't been at one when
With
I'm
the
running. No, I haven't. I'm trying.
absolutely.
It's 11
But
years later. I'm still trying.
yeah, but I think that it's the correlation with the why. You've established the why you're doing it. So you're in that moment as you
Yeah,
run that 1 mile. That why is that you're running for that person. You're thinking about that person. You're saying a
yeah.
prayer for that person. That 1 mile is in honor of that person. Do you think that it is important, perhaps, to establish a why as we change our mindset and work towards transformation?
Absolutely. That is the key. That is really the key. That's a great question. Because without a why, there's no, what's the purpose? What's the point? At least for an Ironman, many people thought I was trying to kill myself. It's such a crazy race. So why am I trying to kill? In reality, I'm trying to live. But, when you're trying to do something that's impossible or something that's new or transforming a mind or trying to, whatever it is, if you don't have a why, you don't have a point, you don't have a purpose. And it's those moments when you want to walk, you want to quit. It's the why that's going to get you through that moment and to help you find the endurance to continue on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how are you enjoying life today? What are you doing today? How are you enjoying life today?
I'm really enjoying life a lot. I just did my I just finished my third Ironman. I've tried 5, but I've only gotten to the finish line 3 times, and that was a month ago.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
thank you very much. It was, I was thrilled when I got done with it. But so I'm looking for new adventures. I'm happy with my job, with what I'm doing. I don't even like to call it a job. Working with the military has given me a lot of pleasure. It's given me purpose. It helps me understand, that the life is much bigger than me. I'm just a conduit of information, of insight, and up until really Ironman 11 years ago, I had great jobs. I had made some good money. I bought homes, but there was never any kind of purpose. And so now having this purpose makes me happy and, gets me through the day.
Absolutely. And I think that that's really the key, purpose and the why. All of those things
Mhm.
are the driving force behind what we do, and definitely shifts the way we think about how we just want to live and how we project ourselves to.
Mhm.
So I think that
Mhm.
that's great. Um, we are talking about finding inner peace after trauma. And, when we can't think about trauma without thinking about victims and survivors.
Mhm.
And we don't know when we talk to people in our audience, we never know who's in our audience. If we're talking to a victim, if we're talking to a survivor, or sometimes even if we're talking to potential perpetrators, or perpetrators. Um, so before we talk about a victim, let's talk about survivor. So can we talk, because that's the space that you're in right now as a survivor, can we talk about a survivor versus a thriving survivor? Because I believe that there's a difference.
There
Um,
is, yes. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you
oh,
off.
no, you're fine. So I just want you to kind of talk about that a little bit, a survivor versus a thriving survivor.
Yeah, this is a conversation we could spend hours on, because I really resonate with both of them. For at least 15 years, I was a survivor. I hate to use the word victim,
Mhm.
and I understand the word victim very well on the legal side, but also victim connotates something negative, and I felt very negative. And even though I was surviving, I was still kind of in a state of purgatory, I call it, because it was kind of so numb. I was just kind of going with the wind, very gypsy life kind of attitude, not having any really solid goals, not having any dreams, not believing that I could really control my destiny, that other people could take it at any given time. And though I had a lot of great success in a number of areas, um, it was just surviving. And then it took me it wasn't an easy overnight thing going from surviving to thriving. And, but once I made that decision that I wanted to thrive, that I wanted to succeed, that I wanted to be in control, that I wanted to seek some sort of justice or a peace of mind, um, it still wasn't an easy process because then I really had to face everything. I was the type of survivor that was an emotional runner. I didn't want to confront anything that would be negative or anything that I perceived could hurt me, whether it was physically or emotionally. So I just kind of enabled things. I held my emotions inside. I didn't, I let people get away with things that I would never let them get away with now, and things that were being said to me or done, and especially in relationships. And so when I really decided to take control, I still had a hard time with that because I looked at the concept of being in control as overpowering another person. And once I started twisting my thought process and realizing, no, it's about me in control of my life, of my destiny, as opposed to, it was always like, I always looked at it as us versus them kind of thing that I couldn't, it was always with the essence of me worrying about somebody else. And if I was going to change, if I was going to transform, if I was going to think differently, if I was going to go down a new path, if I was going to, whatever it was going to probably hurt somebody else. And that was, certainly happened in my marriage. I was raised where you give until it hurts, and then you give some more. So even though he's a good man, but he wasn't the right man, I was going to stick with him because that's what you do. And when I went to counseling and I started realizing the stronger I got, the weaker he and I got. And it was painful because I didn't want to do anything to hurt him at the expense of not being true and authentic to myself.
Absolutely.
So I had to really come to peace with all of that. I had to learn to say no to certain things, to say yes to certain things, and to really start looking at what was best for me. And I learned, I had started a nonprofit years ago and called Alliance Against Violence. And it was a great thing to do, but I was doing it really more as a way to try to fill some sort of a hole, a void in my life. And ultimately, I used all my money to try to keep that nonprofit going, when in reality, it was a good idea, but it really wasn't the right thing for me to do. I still hadn't found peace with what had happened. I thought that would kind of help me be at peace with what had happened. And the ultimate lesson from that is you can't help anybody else if you can't take care of yourself.
Right.
Whether that's financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you have to do what you can to be as healthy with your mind, body, and your spirit, before you can really try to help somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We as advocates, we talk about it, making sure that your cup of tea or your cup is filled before you try to fill someone else's cup. On the airlines, they tell you
Yeah.
put on your mask first before you put on
Right.
the person next to you's mask. So you're absolutely right. We have to make sure that we're okay before we can actually help anyone else. I saw that we have a couple of questions here, so I want to jump in. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you're just locking in, we're on with Anne-Marie. She's sharing her traumatic story and her victory with the Ironman, who she's just shared with us. She's an Ironman athlete, and she just completed her third Ironman. After 5 attempts, she did completed 3. So that's a great story. But we do have a question here from Lisa. It says, have you ever experienced limiting beliefs, even if you really wanted to? And I think there was a caveat to that, or accomplished. I think that's what it said, accomplish something. Have you ever accomplished something? Have you ever experienced limiting beliefs, even if you really wanted to accomplish something?
Yes, absolutely. Even if I wanted to accomplish it, so I saw this last Ironman. I always like to go in with the 2 goals: do not get into the medical tent, and to finish in less than 17 hours without a negative thought. And I had a few negative thoughts on this one. So the good news is that after now 11 years of racing, I've learned how to work through those limited beliefs. Even I know I can do it. I know I can finish it, but I questioned. I wasn't necessarily happy, or had a lot of concerns about finishing this last race because halfway through, right around mile 70, something blew up and when I was on the bike and cut my cornea in a couple of locations, causing me to go like temporary blind in the right eye. Not black blind, but everything was white, everything fogged over. But I really couldn't see out of it at all. And I questioned, my ability to, am I doing the right thing? Is this the stupidest thing I've ever done? The smartest thing I've ever done? You know, but there's a belief in the Ironman that the body achieves what the mind believes. So I kept thinking, as long as I can keep moving forward, I'll figure out what's wrong with my eye later, but it made me question my ability. And, but I just believed in my body. I know I've really learned a lot about my body and what it can and can't do. So that was one of the things. And when it comes to speaking and sharing this story, almost 100% of the time, I get emotional about it. And it's very difficult to get in front of people. Sometimes I'm only speaking to, 6 people, let's say. Other times I'm speaking to 1,600 people. And it takes me, I gotta, put my mind together, be focused on what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. And makes me wonder if I should continue doing this because, I get emotional. But I always go back to that why. Why am I doing this? What's the point of all of this? And that why helps me get through those moments where I'm questioning my sanity or my purpose or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and even in the moments when you're sharing and you are filled with so much emotion, because we are taught as speakers to kind of maintain that emotion so that way you can get the information out there that you need to share, or if you're an educator. But the reality is that it's also showing that you're human, that you're
Yes.
vulnerable, and it allows you to be very transparent. And at the same time, you don't know who's in your audience. So there's someone in there that you're connecting with because they may be in a space where they haven't shared. And to see you so vulnerable, even after you have, thrived and survived, a traumatic event that happened years ago, maybe they feel encouraged and empowered to come forward and to just share, even if it's just with you. And it's that one person that we talked about earlier, that one person, if you can impact that one person and make a change with that one person, then we've done our job. So I think that that's great. And I'm glad that you mentioned that as well, because it makes me think about the energy as well, that enthusiastic energy, that emotional energy. And if it's positive, I've been reading a lot about emotional energy with anxiety and depression. Um, uh, you know, how does that emotional energy transform into inner peace? How do we get to inner peace with emotional energy? And because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's healthy, and sometimes it's not, and we have to be able to decipher the two. So how do we get that emotional energy to turn into some positive fuel for us for inner peace?
Well, there's a number of steps to it, but for me, the ultimate thing for me, because I prayed for that for a long time. I wanted inner peace. I wanted, on some level, forgiveness, because, we're raised, turn the other cheek. So I'm always happy to share this side of the story, but I'm always worried that someone's going to think I'm trying to preach. So I'm not. This is just my story on how I found that inner peace. Is that one day I was really struggling, having some very dark moments. And so I went to church. Nobody was there. And I found myself so heavy with, these burdens, trying to figure it all out. I was too tired to sit in the pew. And I remember just laying in the pew and thinking, this is very disrespectful, to lay in the pew, but my body just couldn't handle even just sitting there. And I was looking at Jesus on the cross and thinking, people say that he was a man who experienced every emotion on earth. Yes, he's the Son of God, but to better understand us, he felt all of those emotions. And I remember thinking, he must have been pretty pissed off at that moment. Here he had done all of these good things. He forgave and he created these miracles and blah. So call him a prophet, call him son of man, call him a man. He must have been pretty pissed off at that moment, full of pain and torture and hanging on the cross. And then I thought, well, the last thing he said basically was, forgive them, they know not what they do. And I had been looking for forgiveness, but it wasn't that stuck with me. It was, they know not what they do. And, I cannot speak for the guy that raped me and stalked me and tried to kill me. I can't speak for him. I don't know his state of mind. But did he know what he was doing at the time? Yes. I believe he knew what he was doing, physically doing. I think that he's a very manipulative, condescending, evil person. Yes, I believe all of that. Did he know how it was going to affect me in the long run? I don't think so. It was just, and this is what he wanted to do. That was going to gratify him for whatever reason. And then I think about my experience is after it. And I thought, I wasn't in my own right mind. I don't know what they do. That was me. I married a person because he would yes, I loved him, but he more gave me security. And I accepted his lack of love for me to have that security. And I can give you a whole grocery list of bad choices that I made because of my mindset, because what had happened to me. Not getting counseling, not speaking up, not telling my family, not telling my friends. The list is long of all the problems that I caused for myself. Financial problems, emotional problems, spiritual problems, physical problems. And I wasn't in my right mind. And though I was up until that point, I was really looking for forgiveness for him, this guy that had done these things to me. But I realized I needed to forgive myself. Not because I believe I caused him to rape me. And those, I don't take any of that responsibility. That's all on his plate. I take responsibility for the things that I did after the fact because of my mindset. And when I realized I needed to forgive myself for the bad choices that I made in my life, wow, that was like a life-altering moment for me. And that ultimately led to my peace of mind. And like I said in the beginning, I don't know if he deserves peace, but I don't know if he deserves forgiveness, but I deserve the peace.
Right.
And once I was able to kind of let that go with me and accept me and be authentic to me and forgive myself for whatever those choices were, everything turned around.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's where the transformation began.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh man, Anne Marie, thank you so much. I'm looking at the time. It's 2:49. What I want to do is just give anyone an opportunity that wanted to ask any questions before we start talking about some additional things that we can put in our healing toolkit.
Okay.
So if anyone has any questions, any comments, please don't hesitate. Drop them in the comments section below. I'd be more than happy to make sure that we get those answered as Anne Marie kind of shares her story with us. Movement is so important. When we think about painful situations, in order for us to build, we have to, or rebuild, we have to move. And do you feel like in order for you to continue in your healing journey, that you have to constantly keep moving and kind of readjusting your mindset? Because I know you said you did 5 Ironman now.
Right.
So is it that constant movement that helps, keep you at peace?
Well, it's a great question because, well, first of all, I'm just an athlete. I've always been athletic since I was a little kid. And it's just something that I love to do. It makes me feel good, mentally, physically, everything. It makes me feel good. So yes, but the cool thing about it is for those that are not into doing an Ironman or going for, a run or whatever it might be, there's scientific evidence that shows that the constant physical movement of forward, doing something moving forward, really can help us overcome some of those fight and flight reflexes that we have, especially those with PTSD. And I don't know if I can explain it really eloquently, but the essence is that when we are moving forward, our eyes are constantly looking left, right, and there's a process of doing that works with that, paralysis or the fight or flight kind of triggers in our mind. I'm not explaining it very well, gosh darn it all. I wish I could
No,
explain it
that's
better,
great.
but I'm going to have to work on that. But yes, so that for my own peace of mind, and I think for everyone's peace of mind, even if all you do is take a 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk, to be outside, to do something physical, that will help with the peace of mind, and that will help change help transform the mindset on a short-term basis, which will ultimately lead to a long-term basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we have a question coming in. Do you believe that endorphins, but it stopped? So maybe there's a second part of that coming in. So we'll wait on that a few more moments. But, I appreciate you just coming on board today and just sharing all of this information, because there's so many of us that don't know, that still don't believe that we deserve inner peace, that don't know the why yet. They don't even know what questions to ask themselves so they can kind of move forward to healing. So this is just kind of giving us a broad look at some of the different things that we should be thinking about and how we can work towards finding inner peace. Okay, so let me go back and see if I can ask that question. It's, do you believe that endorphins help our chemical brain process?
Yes, absolutely. Can I explain why? No. I'm sorry. I just can't figure it. I'm not the most eloquent person when it comes to the scientific reasoning, but it's just my own personal experience. Yes, hands down, man down, definitely, as they say in basketball. Yeah.
Anything that kind of gets like our adrenaline pumping, gets us thinking, gets our heartbeat racing in a positive way, can definitely assist us as we're healing and as we're just kind of thinking about how we want to move forward. I have been an avid runner for years, and I remember, again, I shared with you all earlier that I have some health issues, and it's actually with my lungs. And I remember when I couldn't run anymore. I remember when I couldn't walk anymore. I remember when I couldn't talk. And I literally had to go through pulmonary rehab to learn how to breathe again, and then get to the point where I was learning how to walk and then run. And I remember sitting down talking with my pulmonologist and all of my doctors and the occupational therapist and the physical therapist. And they asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to run. And they was like, no, seriously, what do you want? What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish out of this? And I said, I want to be able to run. Because for me, that was my safe place. That was my takeaway. For me, that was the thing that allowed me to meditate. I every bit of it, tightening up my shoelaces and getting out there. And every time my foot hit the pavement, any pain, any hurt, anything I needed to process, I was able to do it in that moment. And by taking that away from me, I just felt so lost. And and that was one of the things that I worked towards. And I remembered when I was going through therapy, there were people in there that was like 80 and 90, and they were walking around this track, and they were just walking around the track. And I just thought, I'm gonna walk this track, I'm gonna walk this treadmill, but then I'm gonna run on it before I leave here. And it took a year. It took a year. And that was my goal. And that the why was because I needed it. And I ended up getting there. I'm not able to run the way that I used to, but being able to be determined enough to say, I'm not quitting, I'm not giving up, I'm going out there and do it because I need to, for me holistically. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And so that's the why. And I think your
Yeah.
brain allows you the ability to be able to do some of those things that we need to help us towards inner peace. So just again, thank you so much for sharing. Please, if you have any questions, any comments, please send some love to Anne Marie. She came
Thank
on
you.
today and just shared some great information with us on some things she could put in our toolkits, as well as also shared her traumatic experience and her triumph as she accomplished the Ironman race.
Yeah.
Is the Ironman
It's a race.
race
Hmm.
as she was on her healing journey. And if you could just kind of close out for us with a few additional toolkits as we're navigating the holidays, and just some
Yeah.
great things that we can take away with us to just kind of share, navigating inner peace, especially during the holidays and we're hustling and bustling with family members.
Right. Well, one of the things I will really want to share is the importance of support,
Mm.
whether that's training for an Ironman or just, your family, or you've got a new goal or you want to transform, whatever and it's not necessarily to tell everybody, because for a long time I wanted to tell everybody what had happened to me. But I realized that's not very healthy to do that, because some people are uncomfortable, some people don't want to hear it, or they don't believe it. But I did find a handful of people that I know support me 100% what I do. And one of them is my main training partner. Her name's Angela. And to give you an idea, when I did this last race a month ago, and on the run, around 8 miles into the run, I saw her and her fiance, and I said, I got a problem. I can't see out of my right eye. And she says to me, you can't stop. Continue walking. Have a beer. I thought, okay. So not everybody would have said that, but she understood what I was going through, what it takes to get it done. And even though it was a light moment that took some of the heaviness off, but I think everyone should have someone in their support system like Angela, that is going to help you continue moving forward no matter what. And you just have to find that person. If you don't have them, look for them. They're there. And the other thing, a couple other things, is to recover. So whether you're doing an Ironman or you're walking around a track, sometimes it just takes a lot out of your body, and it's important to rest and to recover from that. And whether you're training your mind or you're training your body, so listen to both. And it's okay to rest. It's okay to take a nap. It's okay to take a day off, because you just need to recover. That's part of the growth process. And have patience with your resilience, and get uncomfortable with it all. My first race, before I jumped into the water, before the race began, I was looking at the water. It was dark. The water was 61 degrees, and I was, trying to figure, okay, I got to do this somehow. I didn't know what I really was jumping into. And over the loudspeaker, someone says, jump in, you're avoiding the inevitable. And I'm like, yeah, you you gotta jump in,
Yeah,
whatever
jump
it
in.
is. You gotta jump in. There, you can't start the race. You can't move forward unless you jump in. And I think you also need a lot of passion about what you're doing, in addition to your why. Have passion for it. It's something that if I didn't have passion for riding 7 hours on a bike, I would be screaming in pain all the time and wondering, what the heck am I doing? I'd hate it. It'd be no fun. So you have to really like it, to whatever you're transferring into. And ultimately, I think what peace of mind is, I don't know who said this, I think it's unknown, but it doesn't mean to be in a place where there's no noise or trouble or hard work. It just means to be in the midst of all of those things and to be calm in your heart. And that's my ultimate goal, is to, I want to be in the midst of all of that chaos. I'm okay with that chaos as long as, I'm, calm in my heart. So well, hopefully all of that helps.
Absolutely, absolutely, Anne Marie. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for
Mm-hmm.
taking time out of your afternoon to join us, as well as we have been talking about finding inner peace after trauma. And I think this was a great conversation so much. So can we get some
Yeah.
love for Anne Marie? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I see we have another comment coming in. Yep, jump into whatever you want and or need
That's right.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has to be a constant movement forward. So thank you so much again. And thank all of you. And I hope that you can join us again tomorrow. We'll be back at it at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. We're going to be talking with Dr. Nisi Hamilton, discussing sex, language, slavery, and how to kind of navigate some of the virtual and social media predators to kind of keep everyone safe, especially during the holiday when people are on their computers more. And then we're going to close the afternoon out with Anada Ray, balancing inner and outer beauty. Again, and her as she shares her journey to creating and finding inner peace. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us again this afternoon. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And until next time, continue to be unstoppable. Have a great one, everyone.